This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
In that beginning time, I didn't know how to deal with her. I was only focusing on my grandma. And now I think I have a nice balance of learning about dementia and keeping my grandma. But in the beginning, I was just spiraling and just trying to I wanted my grandma not to progress. And so I think I would tell 2017 Kris that it's going to get worse and there is still love to be had. So hold on to the love.
Caring for aging parents or other loved ones while working, raising children, and trying to live your own life? Wondering how to find the time for your personal health and happiness? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast, the show where real family caregivers share how to be happy and healthy while caring for others. Now, here's your host, family caregiver, and certified caregiving consultant, Elizabeth Miller.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast, which is part of the Whole Care Network. If this is your first time listening, welcome. This is a show produced bi-weekly to help family caregivers integrate self-care and caregiving into their lives. Each episode has an accompanied show notes page. So if you would like more details about the topics, products, and resources we speak about, or you want to see the related photos, you'll find the show notes by going on the website, happyhealthycaregiver.com, and underneath the podcast menu, click the image or the episode number for today's show. The link is also in your podcast platform's episode description. Do you know about WCN University? It's a digital course library for family caregivers. My first course is available called 6 Steps to Infusing Self-Care in Your Caregiving Life. There are also a ton of other courses and a variety of other topics. Search and select for what is most helpful to you right now. Learn more at www.wcnuniversity.com. For today's segment of what I'm reading, I just finished a book from Gillian McAllister called Wrong Place, Wrong Time. I usually am attracted to the books that Reese Witherspoon's book club has picked because they, in general, have not led me wrong. This particular book is fiction and it's in the mystery genre. I had a little bit of a hard time getting into it, which is why I gave it 3.5 stars and rounded it up to 4 stars. The first chapter completely hooked me, and then I found the book a little bit hard to pick up for a bit, until I was about halfway through, and then I was committed. It's a story and a mystery that has a creative way of unfolding the mystery. You see, the crime happens in the beginning, and then the main character has to go back in time to witness all the little life-changing things that have happened right under her nose. It's a really creative way to lay out a mystery, and I would definitely read another book by this author. It's also a good reminder to us as family caregivers to be present and to trust our instincts. I'll link to the book in the show notes. My favorite thing this week is family caregivers. I don't know if you're shocked by this, but family caregivers are my people. And I have yet to meet one I haven't liked. They are just a superior caliber of humanity, in my opinion. And I'm excited about the upcoming 2023 retreats that I'm a part of. So I'm an ally for a group called Brutally Beautiful, and you're going to hear a little bit more about this in the episode with Kris today. My first retreat was in Moab, Utah. Gorgeous place. And I got to be introduced to people, aka family caregivers, who really understood me and saw me. And I was introduced to different types of caregivers, people who were caring for someone with a spinal cord injury, maybe their spouse or a child, people who were military caregivers, parent caregivers, sibling caregivers. Several of these retreats have happened since the Moab one, and most of them have been in Colorado for me because I became a program guide for these retreats. I feel so strongly that caregivers are in need of a real break, that this is an important thing for me to put my time and attention to. During the retreats, I was pushed out of my comfort zone. I have ridden a mule for 40 miles as I went in training to be a program guide. I have slept under the stars. I've done river rafting and Jeep rides on slick rocks and hikes that I didn't know I was capable of doing. And I just felt like, more importantly, the community there, that it was a safe space for me to share and have what we call #real talk. And I discovered then that nature really is so healing for me. And I gained some tools that I took back that I've been able to infuse in my self-practices daily at home. So again, I'm passionate about respite for caregivers. These are holistic healing retreats that give them a place to focus on themselves. We really discourage talking about the care recipients other than their brief intro. We believe that you are #so much more than a family caregiver. So I'm a program guide for the retreats, and I facilitate some of the programs. One of my favorite is to do the self-care pledge, which happens on the last day, where we focus on the future version of yourself and coaching them on how to create a realistic self-care practice that they can do at home. I'm an ally, so I'm helping to amplify what Brutally Beautiful is doing with their healing retreats. And today's guest is also a Brutally Beautiful ally, along with some other amazing people. We want to gain more supporters of people that are interested in providing more respite for caregivers. Ideally, we want more retreats that caregivers don't have to pay for. It's more than just having this amazing weekend. They leave with a lifeline of support and what we call their broodies. They're people who are going to take them through their caregiving journey and be by their side and really understand what they're going through. As a person who works with caregivers and coaches on self-care, it's essential that I don't burn out as someone in the care economy who works with caregivers. And I need to practice what I preach. And so there's also a unique opportunity this year for people in the care economy, or those who work with family caregivers, whether they're in healthcare or counseling or their practice interacts with caregivers, to get their buckets filled and see what a caregiver retreat is like. And maybe they'll end up hosting their own retreat in a future year. So the caregiver retreat that you can apply for as a family caregiver happens in Maine this October, and I'll put the link to apply in the show notes, and there's a $50 submission fee for that. And that helps build up our scholarship fund for caregivers. And if you have been on any of the retreats before, there's an alumni retreat. And then I'll also link to the special retreat for the people who work in the care economy. Before we get into today's Caregiver Spotlight episode, I want to shine a light on our episode sponsor, M3 Global Research. Family caregivers, we believe your authentic voices and those of your care recipients deserve to be heard. And for doing so, Happy Healthy Caregiver's partner, M3 Global Research, wants to pay you real cash. Register online to receive invitations for the surveys or web interviews for which you and your care recipient are a fit. All information is kept strictly confidential and is never sold to third parties. Each of the M3 Global surveys shares the compensation amount up front. And using the M3 wallet, you can claim your funds quickly after each survey you participate in, or accumulate funds in your M3 wallet and save up for something special. Ready to get started? Fill out your profile at bit.ly/M3 Global Partner. And I will link to that in the show notes today. Let's meet today's caregiver in the spotlight, Kris McCabe. Kris has been the full-time family caregiver for her Grams, Mary, since 2017. They started sharing their life and love as they navigate Alzheimer's together on Instagram that same year. Now, with nearly 500,000 followers on TikTok, Kris continues to create connections with fellow caregivers while sharing their special bond she has with her grandma during the progression of this disease. Leading with love, laughter, and a New York attitude. In this episode, we dive into what a soul caregiving life looks like. We share our dislike for internet trolls. We explore what Kris would say to new to caregiving Kris, discover where Life with Grams is headed, and extract the various steps Kris has intentionally taken to elevate her overall mental wellness. Enjoy the show. Hello, Kris. Welcome to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to chat with you and just get into all of the things. Before we do that, though, I like to pull some stuff from this. It's really fancy, this caregiver jar that I made for my sister when we transitioned care from my mom from me to her. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on this. It says, today I will be no, let me say that again. Today I will be me-sponsible, the act of being responsible to me for the benefit of my health, happiness, and well-being. Are you being me-sponsible today?
I am trying my best to be me-sponsible. I did take a shower. I said, I'm getting that done no matter what. My bedroom is a disaster because I asked my grandma to fold my socks while I was in the shower so she could have something to do. And the socks are just all over the room, but that's okay. I got to shower, so I was able to focus on me in that time. And when I got out of the shower, that was another story. But
yeah, a shower is
shower. Yeah.
The showers are like, they're underrated self-care, I think. Yeah, it's just something, if I feel grouchy, whatever, can be healing. And if you want to feel better, I don't have a grandma with dementia in my home, but I have a golden doodle that's about 2.5 years old. And she's obsessed with socks, and there's socks all over my freaking house. So
I thought it was going to be a fun task to like match them up. And she did a great job, but I think she was confused where to place them. And so there's one on the pillow, one in the closet, one on the desk.
She was decorating.
Decorated. Yeah.
Like, these are so pretty. Let's put them around. I love that. Well, my secret goal today, Kris, is to get you laughing, which I think we've already achieved a little bit because I love your laughter. And we did get a huge dose of laughter yesterday. I know this isn't coming out for a while, but we had a fundraiser on your TikTok live, which, I mean, thank you for being so patient with myself and the other allies who are new to live on TikTok. And we raised $2,000 for caregiver respite.
Great. You seemed like professionals. You would never have known that was like your first time doing anything like that. Everyone killed it. It was so much fun. I have done fundraisers in the past for other organizations and things for caregiving, but to do it with a group of like-minded people, like to have y'all's support and doing it together made the experience 10 times. And the feedback from everyone on my TikTok has been, we love that. Do it again with more people.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely do it again. And because Brutally Beautiful needs us, and we'll talk more about Brutally Beautiful as we kind of get into the show. But I did eat dog food, and I'm alive today to tell about it. So my husband's like, you did? I was like, yeah. He's like, how much? And I said 2 kibbles. And he was like, oh, you should have done a whole handful. I'm like, oh, whatever. You can be on next time.
Well, when you said you were going to eat dog food, my whole face dropped. I was like, what? I ate mayonnaise. I thought that I didn't eat. That did not work.
There's not a lot of food I don't like. And if I don't like it, I don't really have it in my house. So anyway, too funny. Well, let's get into it. So for those of you who don't know you, which maybe there's a couple people, for those of you who don't know you, give us a synopsis, Kris, of your caregiving story.
Yeah. So my grandma was extremely independent, and it came to a point where we knew something had to be done. And my mom took care of her for a little while and just didn't feel like she could physically keep up with the demands of caregiving. And so my grandma was placed into a state facility here in Illinois. And I saw the light in her eye go away, and I wanted to keep that spark because my spark inside of me is from her. I wouldn't be here today without her. And so I wanted something more, and timing, serendipity, whatever you want to call it. My roommate's mom actually got sick, unfortunately, but he moved out. And so I had an empty space in my apartment, and I just felt like it was time. And now here we are 6 years later, and I've been learning along the way and just really leading with the love that me and my grandma have always shared. She has always been my best friend. We shared a room until I was like 3 years old. So, she's always been a part of my life.
Yeah, I think that like if I knew Mary when she was your age, would she be a lot like you?
Yes.
And vice versa? Okay.
Yeah, we're definitely kindred spirits there. I get a lot of my sass and personality from growing up with her and watching her. And so, yeah, it's funny because people always said, you're going to be just like your grandmother. And when I was younger, I kind of was insulted because at the time I was like, grandma's never been married. She's single. Like, I just thought I was like, what kind of life is she living? Like, I don't want to be like grandma. And then when I got older and I realized who she is and why she is that way. And I learned so much more about life through seeing her journey. And I'm proud to be like her now. I wouldn't want to be any other way. I love it. She's a strong woman and she's incredible.
She is incredible. Yay for Mary. What do you call yourself, Kris? Are you like 24/7 caregiver, full-time caregiver, always on caregiver?
I call myself the sole caregiver because I am. My journey has been like many's. It's a coaster. And in the beginning of this caregiving journey, I had full support from my family, and I really felt like we were a care squad. I called ourselves, like, I had my care team, my care squad. Everyone had a duty in line for the best care for my grandma. Unfortunately, things happen, and I have been doing this for 6 years now. So many people can look at it and go, well, how much longer are you going to do this for? And so unfortunately, my support system started dwindling. And now I don't want to say it's completely gone because that's not true. It's just the constant support is no longer available. So that really was a big change.
How have you coped with that? Because like family dynamics is probably, as a certified caregiving coach consultant, like that's one of the biggest things I get is like people aren't doing what they think that they should be doing or helping enough or just all of that. Like, how do you cope with that?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, the first few months, I was not coping well. Angry.
Yeah.
I was so angry. And I was burnt out and taking it out on everybody, anywhere, people in the drive. Like, I was so not myself because I'm nice to all humans. And I was just so irritated with everything. And I was taking out that frustration on the world. And because I had to lower my expectations, this is what I provide for my grandma, but this is not what everyone is going to provide for my grandma. And I can't hurt myself even more by waiting around or wanting something different. So what I did, I implemented. So for the last 3 months, since the beginning of the year, I've made it a priority to have a day or two off. And I find help from whomever. If I can't get it from my usual source, my family, if they're no longer available, I'm very thankful. I found a community of friends who I trust, and they've been able to save me. And I know people are like, 1 day off, you need more than that. I implement things on a daily basis to enjoy my life. So I really try not to, be miserable every day.
Yeah, you're not completely gasping for breath when you're leaving the door, because you have learned, because this has been a long journey for you. The average caregiver is 4.5 years, I think. So you're beyond average. And with dementia, that can happen, I think, a lot where they're living longer than that. And so you do have to, it's not this little 6-month recovery from a hip replacement. You've got to figure out how to infuse this stuff in a daily basis. And so I love that you're living that and that you're showing the world what that can look like. And it's not like every day is a great day and you're perfect with it. There's no such thing as perfect. And then back to the family dynamics. I'm one of 6 kids. I get it. We have a brother that needs help. Our parents are deceased. And so we all have different opinions and things. And sometimes I think there is this I have learned to accept some of the members in my family as like, well, they're consistent. Like they've kind of been this way my entire life. Like, why did I think that magically this caregiving situation was going to change their DNA? Yeah. So there is there's a lot of acceptance, I think, in caregiving and learning how to let go and manage those expectations. And I'm glad that you've been kind of looking outside of your family, which is what I encourage a lot of solo caregivers to do. Is like, okay, well, who else can we add to this care team? Like, you found other people in your community? And even like if you have a podiatrist or a hairdresser or a great doctor or something like that can add to the mix, like all of those people, when you look around, like they're like, okay, yeah, there's some folks here.
Support. Yeah. It's nice to have people who have your back too, and not just your loved one. It's a community. And I'm really thankful for the one that I've built online and in person.
You're never going to be bored, Kris, because I feel like, you have said too that you're constantly learning and adapting and pivoting. And I think even so, as your grandma's dementia continues to progress, like there's a nonstop for that. And, have you always been kind of a person that rolls with it?
I am an adapter. I moved out of my home state when I was 15. I moved across country, and that right there, I think as a 15-year-old child, you learn a lot. I went from New York to Las Vegas. And then, yeah, it was a move, and I was in ninth grade. I just finished my freshman year of high school. So that is a big learning curve. And I think in that experience, it really helped me learn to adapt. I mean, we had to let go of so many things in New York, and I learned that. And so I feel like through my last 35, almost 36 years of life, I have just kind of taken what comes and figure it out as it comes. I've never been the kind of person who like expects my life to go one way, because I think at a young age, learning that your life isn't always going to go the way that you expect it to. So I think in this caregiving journey, I've been really fortunate that that's how I view my life. I never view my life as like a goal I have to hit, and if I don't hit it, I've not reached something. My goal is to attain happiness and to try to fulfill that, because when I look at the broad picture of this world and all the people in it and everyone moving and grooving, and it's like, what is it if you're not happy? And so that's really my focus. And I love Happy Healthy Caregiver. I love what you do, because it really is so important.
Yeah, it's like, and it's not me. I'm not the happy, healthy caregiver. Some people try to call me that. And I'm like, oh, wait, no. Like, this is what we're striving for. Like, this is a yes and. So I think it's really important. I'm sure that it doesn't mean we don't have bad days. Like I have bad days, you have bad days, but hopefully we've accumulated some tools that can help us, get over the speed bumps.
Yeah. I mean, I get speed bumps all the time. I have also been very vocal that I've struggled with mental illness for 20 plus years of my life. I've been going to therapy and figuring out what works best for my brain. And so when you add caregiving on top of that, it's really like a balancing act. You have to really listen to yourself. My burnout can be deeper than some people's burnout because of what's going on inside of my head outside of caregiving. I can get burnt out without caregiving. Like I can just feel that energy to be depleted. So for me, it's like extra important to really stay on top of my thoughts and what's going on, because we are energy. And this morning I woke up in a tizzy, she woke up in a tizzy. Like that's just how it works. And as soon as I took a moment, once I stepped out of that shower and took a few breaths, then I looked over at her and she was chilling. Like we have that kind of, you really have to stay in it and focus. So
it's intentional. It's intentional work. I say, what my husband, when we were raising kids, and it's like, if, we can't be grumpy at the same time, like that's just a disaster. That I'll say, like, you set the tone. Like sometimes I'm like, when he's going off the rails on vacation, I'm like, you set the tone. He's like, oh, so I have these like phrases. But you just keep adapting and pushing through, and you're so vulnerable about your story. And I know even that you talked about mental health. You've been very open about therapy. You've been open about getting sober not that long ago. And I'm like, getting sober on its own is a huge feat for people. And you've done that while being a sole full-time caregiver. Like, how the heck did you do that?
It was necessary. It really, I can't even, it just, if I didn't, I don't know where we would be. So it was just one of those things that I knew, not just for caregiving, but for myself. Like I mentioned many times, my grandma has always been kind of my savior. She's always been the one to keep me going and pushing me forward. And in her state of mind, she doesn't have that full capacity anymore. So for me to just, grab a bottle and drink and not feel my actual feelings, or not deal with the anticipatory grief, or not deal with that, I knew I had to get rid of that so I could focus on what was still here. And it really helps me clear my mind. Alcohol's great if you do it healthily. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I did not do it healthily. And anytime I drank, would black out, because that's just the need that my emotions needed. I just was like, this feels great. And that's just how I did it. And so I really recognized that my grandma was going to outlive me. I felt like I was just being reckless. And it was more of, for me, it was less about the alcohol dependency, but the emotional state. I knew my mental health was crashing when I drank. And the next day, it was 10 times harder to pick up and get out of bed on those days. And so I just really, to be honest, I went inpatient, and that's really what started my alcohol-free journey. It just was like, you know what, this is what I need to do.
You had found your bottom and you were working through it. Yeah. I'm so be proud. That's amazing. It's amazing. And I think that there's a lot of caregivers that there are some that we can drink responsibly, and there's others, I'm sure, that it is a sign of burnout when you are, relying too much on external substances or activities to kind of cope and get through. And, I remember one of my neighbors had said, feel the feels. And so I say that to people, it's like, feel the feels. It's like, it's easier said than done.
It is. I have to say that once you get clear and you're not drowning in I feel like alcohol for me, it intensified my emotions. So I wasn't unable to really process anything. I was just covering it. So being able to see clearly and focus on what's important has been so helpful to me.
That's so good. Any regrets? Like, you've been doing this for 6 years, or like, if you had to go back and talk to, 2017 Kris, would you be like saying anything different, or run, or whatever?
I would have definitely told her to learn patience sooner, because patience for me was the hardest. I'm a hothead, and me and my grandma have always been hotheads together. So it was really hard to break that dynamic and be like, oh, she's not being mean on purpose. She has dementia. And just really in that beginning time, I didn't know how to deal with her. I was only focusing on my grandma. And now I think I have a nice balance of learning about dementia and keeping my grandma. But in the beginning, I was just spiraling and just trying to I wanted my grandma not to progress. And so I think I would tell 2017 Kris that it's going to get worse, and there is still love to be had. So hold on to the love. And I think I would have focused on that sooner, because the first 2 years I was just drowning in the grief, and we had so much life. She still was flying and going on vacation back in 2017. And now 6 years later, I'm like, those were the good days, those were the days that you should have been focusing a little bit harder on the love.
Yeah, no should have, would have, could have, but it's like, I think it's important for other people to hear that are potentially back there where you are, because you hear it, I'm sure you see it. People comment on your lives and things where it's like really one of the most freeing things I think with caregiving is like learning how to let go and learning how to accept. And it's just, you have to kind of get to that point. And I think once you're at that point too, you're in a more practical, pragmatic place to be able to really seek out the resources and figure out how to make this more sustainable, which then, just makes it work. Like it's all part of that. I'm glad that, there's people like you though, that are sharing and putting your story out there. So your life is out there, like it's out there, and, with daily lives on TikTok, and you're allowing people to see the intimate interactions with, with grandma and some of the feelings and the tough days. And it's allowing people to see themselves, in your story, who are caring with someone through dementia and living a messy life. But this also comes with a downside. I know, like you have to navigate a lot of internet trolls. Like, how do you handle the trolls in the moment? And how are you, what are you doing now to proactively manage them? Like, what advice would you give to people who are like, I'm going to put my life out on social media?
I have tough skin, but I am a hothead, like I've mentioned earlier. And so for me, I just always want to put people in their place. So that's like a problem I have. I'm like, meh. And then sometimes I give too much of my energy to people that don't matter. I know I'm not exploiting my grandma. I know she's well taken care of. I know I provide what she needs. So why am I listening or even, and some people say, ignore it. For me, once I read it, my brain has already heard that you are judging me. And I'm like, ugh. And I know people are like, don't put your life on the internet if you don't want to be judged. My piece of advice is it's 2023. We're all on the internet now. We live in a social media world. Everyone's grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, sister, niece, they're all on the internet. So whether I have a lot of views or not, we're all still sharing. So we should understand that we're still people. I think, the trolls need to learn that it's not acceptable just to say whatever you want because someone is sharing and being vulnerable.
No,
your opinion is not needed or necessary. So, if you're planning on sharing your journey, make sure you're in therapy. Make sure you have someone. Also, I'm really blessed and thankful that I am part of this kind of care community, because we do have care influencers now who kind of are on the same journey as me. So I'm lucky that I have people who understand the trolls and the eyes on you that I can kind of bounce things back with and kind of talk to and relate to in that sense also.
Yes.
But yeah, trolls, internet it's a
Go
terrible
away, trolls.
Place. Yeah.
Like, this is hard enough as it is. We don't want to hear from you. Like, we are not asking for your unsolicited advice. But I hear what you say, like, once you read it. Like, I'm still stuck on a 1-star podcast review I got like 3 years ago or something, because people like, it wasn't even a very good review. It was like, this show wasn't what it was about. Like, that's not even helpful information. Like, I don't know what show you're talking about. I don't know what episode you're talking about. I don't know whatever you're talking about, but what, you had to take time to do a 1-star review? Like, just go away.
Yes. Oh, I love the people that always tell me they're leaving. Like, oh, you are just not what I expected. I'm like, well, I'm me. I'm not here for you. I really use social media for me to engage and talk to people. Yes, if it has benefits for the people watching, I'm so happy. And yes, I do have a platform now, and I love being able to use it for things like the fundraiser and spreading awareness and all of that. But people have to realize that this is my life I'm living. I'm not curating a show. I'm showing vulnerability of like I wake up and out of bed and I'm like, here I am. Like,
you're not Kim Kardashian
and I'm not getting paid to curate this thing for your eyes. I'm doing it as a release for myself. And so I think people sometimes forget that I'm allowed to be frustrated and mad. You're so defensive. You're talking about my life. I'm allowed to be defensive. Like,
I'm ready to defend. Even on the fundraiser, people are like, "Where's Mary? Where's Mary?" I'm like, Lord, give this woman a break. She does not have to be attached to Mary 24/7. Like, Mary can color. Mary can do some things on her own. She's not sticking a knife in the outlets or anything. Like, I'm pretty sure you have proofed your home for her. Like, it's obviously these people are not in your shoes that are doing this, because.
And I have eyes in the back of my head. She right over there. She good. Like, I always know where she is at all times.
Yes.
And, but. Yeah,
I know.
It's kind of funny.
We're not interested in your unsolicited advice. If you want to share praise, we love to hear that, all of us, because it's hard. It's hard being a caregiver, and it's hard doing that. And we're figuring it out as we go. There's no manual for this stuff. So, well, you're doing another content thing where I saw that you have a new video podcast with, Patients Rising, called Always on Call. I love that name, Always on Call, because as you're always on call. Did you come up with the name, or tell me about the podcast?
No, I mean, it really was kind of a Patients Rising group effort. It was really, really exciting because they reached out to me to host this podcast, and they kind of curated it for me. They were like, we want your personality, your ideas. So I work with a team and we come up with the concepts for each episode. And it's been really fun and exciting. Patients Rising is taking me to DC in June for the Patients Fly-In. And I've never been to DC. So I feel like I really got to put my advocacy pants on and tie them tight. This is going to be my first like big thing. I can talk all day about my grandma and what I know about dementia, but I really want to enter this space and this advocacy with more understanding for all patients and all people who have caregivers or need caregivers. It's really important to me. So
you're already doing an advocacy role, because I do feel like you're giving caregivers a face and you're spotlighting the story. But I hear what you mean, like DC and that whole policy stuff, like it's got its own thing. And that is something that I've been working on personally too, is like, how can we use our platforms and stuff to really make some big changes for caregivers? So that's exciting. I love that. My son's going to be in DC this summer working for my sister's company. So they'll, it's a place that we've got, roots there. It's a fun place.
As everyone's told me, there's lots of nice things to see there. So I'm
excited.
Excited.
There's a lot. And it's a lot of it's free, which is also amazing. Like, can't beat free. So how has self-care, evolved for you? Like over in this full-time role? Like, what does it look like back and thing? And like, how did you kind of get to this place where you're like intentional about infusing stuff in for yourself in the day? Like, what was that journey like?
Yeah. In the first 3 years of being my grandma's caregiver, I still went to work. And so I never felt like the true burnout until I'd say like 2020, when the pandemic happened, because my self-care, I still felt like I was doing other things.
Yeah, work was self-care for me. I will totally admit at the time.
Yes. And I was a photographer. So, I mean, that's like super self-care. I get to see babies and hold babies, newborns all day. Like that was a joy. So that was not really much like work. But when I was like 24/7 with her, it really, I just had to realize that self-care for me is going to be more than going to get a manicure, pedicure, or a massage. While those are great additives to feel good about yourself or to pamper yourself, I needed daily practices to really survive, because I needed the stresses of every day got to me every day. And I was like, how can I make this work? And so I really started focusing on myself. I was my grandma's caregiver, but I really try to implement, like, I like to call them pockets of peace throughout the day, where I can go in my room and shut the door for 5 minutes and breathe. I can journal. Another big thing, I've learned this from Nikki, a log cabin in Brooklyn. She focuses on what she wears, and that's her form of self-care. And she taught me that. And I really love that. On days when I'm not feeling great, I make myself put a little makeup on or put a shirt that I like on. And it just really, it's silly, but it improves your mood. It can, like, when you're just kind of slumming around, you can feel that. But if you just try to like fix yourself, it helps. So just implementing things on a daily basis that focus on who I am outside of my caregiver role. And continuing to do things that I like. When my grandma goes to bed, I watch what I want to watch, and I eat what I want for dinner. And, I still do things that I enjoy. So
what are you watching right now? I'm always looking for good shows.
Oh, right now I just finished watching The Affair on Showtime. It's an old show. It's from like 2014. But it was
I don't know if I get Showtime, although sometimes I have things I don't know that I have them. So isn't to ask.
It was definitely worth I think Showtime gives you 2 weeks free. So pop on and check it out. It was really good.
I'm watching I think it's the second part of the second season of Firefly Lane. That's what I'm watching.
Someone
That's my show
on Netflix. So that is my next to watch. So I have that, but the second season was sad.
Female friendships and stuff. It is a little bit, there's a caregiving role. Like every time I'm like, oh, they're a caregiver, I like it even more. Or, but there's because I've never met a caregiver I didn't like. But I love, you know what I love about what you shared with the self-care, Kris, is like you were listening to other people, like what's working for them. You were trying it on to see if it worked for you. You're kind of discarding what's not and keeping what is. And then it's like, okay, let's rinse and repeat, and let's kind of keep doing that. And I get that. I totally, like, it's not the same for everybody. Like, we have to kind of figure out how we work. And for me, I got to get outside every day. Like, it's like, I need sun on my skin. I love to read, or so I listen to audiobooks or read. Like, doing something like that feels like I'm entering my own little world. And so it's not all about eating healthy and working out, people. And it's definitely not bubble baths and massages and
but
manicures.
It could be if that works for you. Because
it's not all that, though. The media says it. Yeah.
I was more stressed when I was out doing those things. That's what I was really focusing on, is like my days off, my respite days. When I came back, I was more anxious. So that's what really made me focus on the daily self-care. Because those retreats can be nice. Those days away, those spa moments can be nice. But if you come back to the same reality you left and don't know how to deal with the reality that you're in, that's the problem. So that's where the daily is so important.
That's so true. If you dread going home, like I like, when you leave a vacation and you're like, oh, I miss home. I want to go home. That's a good thing. Well, let's talk about the other kinds of stuff that brings us together. Is we're both allies for Brutally Beautiful. That was the fundraiser we were talking about in the beginning of the show, where we did pie face and I ate dog food and you did makeup, and oh my gosh, like, so fun. But they offered, well, how do you describe Brutally Beautiful? Like, you've been on a retreat, I've been on a retreat. Like, what is it all about, and why should people care about it? And why did you want to be an ally?
Yeah, I wanted to be an ally because the retreat changed my life. It really made me focus inner on myself, and it helped me implement my daily self-care practices. I just think the message that Heather has with, the outdoor nature and connection and everything that she teaches in these retreats and shares is so impactful. And I just want other caregivers to be able to experience that, because when I went on that retreat, I was really starting to feel it, and going on that retreat and taking those days for myself really helped me focus back in. And I think all caregivers deserve that opportunity. And so that's what it means to me. And I'm proud to be a Brutally Beautiful ally. I want all the caregivers to get what they deserve and what they need. And so I was so excited yesterday to raise some funds and help some people out. So
yeah, all those funds will go for scholarships for people to go to a retreat at no cost to them, which is exciting. We don't want to add to their financial burden. We want to do more of them. So the more money that we have, the more caregivers we can take on them. And people can apply. They can apply for the one in Maine. That's going to happen in October, early October. I think it's a $50 submission fee, because that's kind of going again toward the building up our scholarship fund. And then, we'll pick the folks to fill the spots. And we try to do a variety of caregivers, because I think there's some power in that too, like meeting people who are military caregivers and dementia caregivers and parents of aging parent or sibling caregivers. So I love meeting like all the different kinds of people and really expanding my community. And you still keep in touch with some people, some like close friendships, I think.
I made some close friends while I was over there. And like you said, it was different kind of caregivers. It was really nice to step out of the dementia world and connect with all caregivers. And that's what really, when I came back from that retreat, it brought a fire into my advocacy to expand and to hear the stories of how much need is needed, not just for elder care, but for the people taking care of their children and their spouses. And it just really was inspiring too.
Yes. Yeah. I love, I know you and Carlos, who's been on the show before, I'll link to his episode. I'll leave us. And he's got a gratitude practice that he has ignited on many people, which is amazing. And you have an amazing singing voice. Is that a form of self-care for you?
Yeah. I mean, I sing for my grandma. She has always been my little conductor. She always wanted me to be a country music star, which we grew up in the city. So I was like, I don't know where that came from, but she always wanted me to be a Patsy Cline.
I could see it.
I mean, Singing is fun, but it's just fun. People are always like taking it too far. I'm like, I could do karaoke. I'll sing in the car and in the shower and for my grandma, but I ain't getting on stage. Like,
No.
I'm not.
I don't know. You're already on stage, I feel like. So it'd just be a different thing. What are you hoping for like the next version of Kris? Like we're not ready to say goodbye to Grams in no shape or form. But I do think it's important for caregivers to plan for their future. And so what is Kris 2.0, 3.0? We called my sister Susie 3.0. 2.0 was divorce. 3.0 was after my mom passed away. And like Susie 3.0, let's go.
Yeah. I feel like if you would have asked me this question a few years ago, I had a set plan. I was like, well, I'm going to be a flight attendant and I'm just going to go live my life because I did freelance photography and I've always wanted to do photography all over the world. And I was like, okay, I can combine my two passions of airlines and flying, and then I can go be a photographer on my days off. So that was like my plan, I'd say like around the pandemic time. But now that I've kind of dived so far into advocacy and all this caregiving stuff, I'd love to continue with my podcast and continue, my voice in this space. I don't want to lose that or leave that. So that's definitely in the plans. And I think I do want to continue my photography. I really, I would love to gear it towards, aging or, kind of photography that people don't really think about.
I would love for you to do that. I hate the caregiver photography right now. Like, that's why on my blog post, I put real pictures of people and real pictures of my life, because there's nothing I dislike more than when like everything's so happy and we're like, hey, caring. And I'm like, we need some like real people, like real caregivers, and like what they really wear when they're caring and like the truth. Like, let's show that side of it.
Love to have, just, and also people, I think so many of us fear getting a photo shoot with our loved one too. Like, even having someone come in the house. I would love to photograph families, to have these memories. That's like the one thing I hear, because I take 1,000 photos and 1,000,000 videos a day. And that's my number one comment is, I wish I would have taken more photos. I wish I would have had these photos. And to me, like, that's something I would love to turn into, have a dual passion, photography and, caregiving or aging adults.
I think that would be amazing to kind of have that capsule of what that was like. I love, people watching the video, they can see the beautiful picture on your couch of you and Grams. And like, you're always going to have that. And it's going to, but I think that's so true. And if there are people listening, they're like, don't like their photo taken. It's like, get your photo taken. Like, yes, it's so important to capture it for future generations so that they can glean some insights on where they all came from. Well, I'm excited about that. Not so excited that we need to do that, anytime soon, but I think it's good to, again, just kind of think about it and have a plan. All right, Kris, are you ready for the lightning round?
I'm ready.
You're so, there's no pie face involved or anything. So, okay. I just picked out a couple questions from the Just For You Daily Self-Care Journal. Oh, it looked like I was flicking you off. From the Just For You Daily Self-Care Journal. And because part of my feeling the feels was writing. Like, I studied journalism in college. I've always been a story sharer. So that was important to me, is to kind of write it out and just process it all. But I wanted people to have a low entry way to taste of that without it being overwhelming. So it's a prompted journal.
I love it.
Thank you. Okay. So first question. Okay. What's your favorite physical attribute?
My favorite physical attribute, my eyeballs.
Your eyes, they are beautiful.
They change
color.
I
love that. Yes. I think so often, like, we just forget about ourselves. So part of that is like putting that focus back on ourselves. Okay. Let's see what else we got. What's energizing you right now?
This conversation. You have great energy, and I've enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Woo. She's all right.
She's like, wait, you didn't say I energize you, Kris? Like, Grandma's mad at you. Yeah.
Again, 2 days in a row. I would love to go see the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis. I don't know exactly where I would go. The best place for that.
Yes.
I know there's a
Yes.
couple of places, but that's like my ultimate dream vacation is like see that somewhere.
Nature's beauty. I love that. Okay, if you were to lose all your possessions, hopefully that never happens, but what would you miss the most?
So my house was on fire in 2017 and I lost almost everything except for family photos. And that was the one thing that I wanted to keep. So that to me is everything else is just stuff, but it's those memories you can't get back. So that definitely that.
I love that. You couldn't imagine a world without ...
Ice cream.
What kind of ice cream?
Oh, all of the ice creams. I love ice cream. I had a ice cream road trip planned for my 30th birthday.
Ooh.
Unfortunately, that was the year I took over taking care of my grandma. So it didn't quite work out the way I wanted to, but I do still have it. One day I'm going to make it work. But yeah, I love all ice cream. I love trying new flavors. I really love the like homemade stuff. Like people,
Yes.
The different creameries you can go try, but
I love ice cream. And then I found out last summer I have a dairy.
Oh no.
My red. I have a lot of red foods, sadly, but it doesn't mean I never have it. I just have to. I found some good oat milk ice creams though. They're not quite the same, but I'm going to pretend they are. So, okay. What did your teenage self? Maybe we talked about this, but what did your teenage self imagine you'd be doing right now?
I'm going to be honest. My teenage self did not think she was going to live past 25.
Oh my gosh. Well, what a gift you are.
That's a real answer. So I never would have, I didn't have any plans because I truly did not believe it. So I'm very graveful. I've made it 10 years past what I expected.
Yes. And you're an advocate for people like that are having those thoughts. Because that's a real thing with mental health. So I think you've got you give people a lot of hope. Yes. Awesome. Well, I don't want to think about that, like what that would be like without knowing you. Like what? That's I know sometimes we can't.
Sorry, I took a turn.
No, we can't see.
Like, do you want me to be honest? I'll be honest.
Yes, I want you to be honest. Always honest, 100%. So, but what a gift you've been to other people and a gift for Grams. And so speaking of all of that, like how can people help you? Like what, if they're listening to this and they're like, I want to do something for Kris and Grams, like, is there a way that they can do something for you? And then how do they keep in touch with you?
We have our Instagram and TikTok, Life with Grams. If you ever want to reach out, I do respond to my DMs. I love connecting with people. That's all I really ask is just like kindness and community. That's like my main focus. We do have a website, lifewithgrams.info. It is going to be updated. It hasn't been updated in like a year, but I am adding all of my podcasts and all of the things I've been doing in the last year on there. So everyone can go check that out shortly. And probably by the time this podcast is out. The website.
Yes. Awesome. It's great for kind of, you've got a lot of good content on stuff. And so to have a good place, but man, maybe someone could help you do that. Like if somebody's like, I want to help Kris put all her website stuff together. She could, I'm sure, use the extra hands there. Well, this has been amazing, Kris. Thank you so much for just being you and for everything that you're doing for Grams and for the caregiving community. We can do hard things, but we're stronger together for sure.
Definitely. This has been so much fun and I love chatting with you and, thank you.
Talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us today on the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast on the Whole Care Network. As always, show notes that accompany today's episode can be found on my website, happyhealthycaregiver.com. Just look under the podcast menu for today's episode image, and that will take you to the page with the links and information we spoke about today. You'll also find other resources on the website, along with links to purchase the Just For You Daily Self-Care Journal. When you purchase from my website, you'll get a signed copy and for a limited time, free shipping. If you've enjoyed what you heard today, consider subscribing to the show on your podcast platform. It really helps other family caregivers find the podcast, and you'll automatically receive our bi-weekly shows in your podcast listening queue. Maybe while you're subscribing, consider leaving a 5-star rating and review, or just simply talk it up on your social channels. Let's stay connected. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Happy Healthy Caregiver. And until we meet again, please take care of you.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.